At some point, my own house stopped feeling like mine. There wasn't a fight. There wasn't a betrayal I could point to. No slammed doors, no suitcases on the lawn, no dramatic sentence that split my life into a before and an after. If anything, that's what makes this harder to explain. The loss didn't come as a theft. It came as a slow reassignment. Like someone gently moving objects an inch at a time until one day you realize none of them are where you left them. And neither are you. I'm a man in my late 50s. I've worked since I was 17. I've paid mortgages, car loans, college tuition. I've fixed leaky roofs on weekends and mowed lawns after 10-hour shifts. I believed, the way a lot of men my age were taught to believe, that providing was the same thing as leading. That if you carried the weight, you earned the ground beneath your feet. This is not a story about villains. That's important to say up front. My wife is not cruel. My kids are not ungrateful monsters. No one woke up one morning and decided to erase me. That's why this feels so embarrassing to admit. You expect displacement to come with force. You don't expect it to arrive wearing comfort and good intentions. When we bought the house, it felt like a milestone. A modest place in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy. Brick exterior, 2-car garage, small backyard. The kind of house that says, a man lives here. A family is anchored here. I remember standing in the empty living room after closing, keys in my hand, listening to my footsteps echo. That sound meant something back then. It meant permanence. At first, it was ours in the simple way newly owned things are. The furniture was mismatched. The walls were bare. Every decision felt mutual because everything was undecided. We talked about what we wanted, where we would put things, what we might do someday. But someday has a way of turning into eventually, and eventually becomes already done. The first change I remember noticing was the chair. I had a recliner. Brown leather. Not expensive, but solid. It sat in the corner of the living room near the window. That chair was where I read the paper in the mornings and watched the evening news after work. It wasn't a throne. It was just mine. One day, my wife said it looked bulky, too dark, didn't fit the room anymore. She suggested we move it to the basement. The basement was unfinished then. Concrete floor. One light bulb on a string. I hesitated, but it didn't feel worth arguing over. We'll get something nicer, she said. Something that works better for everyone. So the chair went downstairs. I sat on the couch instead. The couch was softer, lower, and already claimed by throw pillows. I adjusted. Men my age are good at adjusting. We've been doing it our whole lives. The TV came next. I'd always controlled it without thinking about it. Not in a tyrannical way, just by default. Sports on Sundays. News at night. That changed when streaming came into the picture. Suddenly, there were shows to binge. Series with seasons and arcs, and just one more episode. I found myself asking instead of choosing, mind if I watch the game? Is it okay if I switch this on? Are you almost done? I didn't notice when asking replaced deciding. I just know it did. Then came the shelves. At some point, the house filled up. Not with clutter exactly, with purpose. Decorative purpose. Framed quotes. Candles. Seasonal items. Things that didn't do anything except announce that someone had curated this space. My tools, on the other hand, were moved to the garage, then into cabinets, then into bins. The garage became more storage than workspace. I started borrowing my own things back, asking where something had been put. You should keep things more organized, she said once. Not unkindly I didn't argue. Organization sounds reasonable. Men who argue against reason look foolish. The kitchen was next, though I didn't think of it that way at the time. I used to make breakfast on weekends. Eggs, bacon, coffee. I had my way of doing it. One morning, she rearranged the drawers. The spatulas moved. The knives were in a different block. The pans I liked were on a higher shelf. Just trying to make it more efficient. She said I stopped cooking as much after that. Not out of spite. It just felt like being in someone else's workspace. You don't relax in a place where you don't know where things are. The money part is the hardest to explain without sounding bitter. I paid for the house. Not alone, but primarily. The down payment came from my savings. The mortgage came out of my paycheck for years. When my wife went part-time, then eventually stopped working to help with family issues, I didn't hesitate. That's what you do. You step up. You absorb. What I didn't anticipate was how financial responsibility would turn into financial invisibility. Bills were handled online now. Accounts were joint, but she managed them. I trusted her. She was good with details. Over time, I stopped seeing statements. Not because she hid them, because I didn't ask. And because when you don't ask, people assume you don't care. Decisions got made out of bathroom, renovation, new appliances, furniture, upgrades that I'd be informed after the fact. I thought you'd like it. It's more modern. It increases the value. Value is an interesting word. It sounds objective, neutral, like math. But value doesn't ask who feels at home. I started noticing that when guests came over, they were guided through the house by my wife. She explained where things were, what had been changed, what was planned next. I stood there nodding, chiming in occasionally like a docent who no longer curated the exhibit. My office became a guest room. That one stung more than I expected. I'd had a small room upstairs where I kept paperwork, old books, some memorabilia, photos from my father's time in the service, a couple of trophies from company softball leagues. It wasn't impressive, but it was a room that didn't apologize for my existence. When the kids started visiting with families of their own, the room was needed. That made sense. Of course it did. So my desk went into the corner of the bedroom, then into the basement, then disappeared altogether. Do you really need all that stuff? She asked gently. No, I didn't need it. That's the problem. Men my age were raised to confuse need with permission. If you can survive without something, you don't get to argue for it. To be why the time I realized I no longer had a room in my own house. It felt too late to object without sounding pathetic. The house didn't feel hostile. That's the strangest part. It felt polite, clean, managed. It just didn't feel like it expected anything from me except payment and maintenance. That I fixed things when they broke. I shoveled snow. I mowed the lawn. I took out the trash. Those tasks remained unquestioned, unchallenged. They were my jurisdiction. Outside, peripheral, functional. Inside was different. Inside felt curated. That I noticed I began spending more time in the garage, even when I didn't need to. I'd sit in the car for a few minutes after pulling in, just listening to the engine tick as it cooled. It was quiet there. No expectations. No commentary. When I came inside, I walked more carefully. Not physically, psychologically. Like someone aware of being in a hotel room they hadn't booked. That I started using phrases like, your house, without thinking about it. Your house looks nice. You've done a lot with the place. She never corrected me. Why would she? From her perspective, she had done a lot with it. And I had let her. That's the part that keeps me up some nights. The understanding that no one forced this. That I participated through silence. Through prioritizing peace over presence. Men my age are good at that. Too, that we learned that arguing about space makes you petty. That insisting on authority makes you controlling. That the noble thing is to yield, to adapt, to prove your worth through endurance. But endurance doesn't build territory. It erodes it. There was a moment, small, almost laughable, when it finally clicked. That I came home early one afternoon. I'd taken a half day. I walked into the living room and sat down. I turned on the TV. I wasn't even watching anything in particular, just letting it be on. A few minutes later, my wife came in and paused. Oh, she said. I was about to watch my show. I stood up immediately. Reflex, like standing when a superior enters the room. Sorry, I said. Go ahead. I realized, standing there, that I didn't even consider saying no. Not because I feared a fight, but because it didn't feel like my right. That realization landed heavier than any argument ever could. Since then, I've paid attention. I notice how I ask before sitting in certain chairs, how I lower my voice when she's on the phone, even if I'm in my own kitchen, how I hesitate before opening drawers. Like I might disrupt an arrangement I don't understand. I notice how my name isn't on the decorative signs, how my history isn't on the walls, how the house tells a story, just not mine. I don't think my wife realizes any of this. Truly, if I told her, she'd be hurt, confused. She'd say I should have spoken up. She'd say she thought I didn't care. And that might be the cruelest truth of all, that by trying not to be a burden, I made myself invisible. That I'm not looking for advice. I'm not planning a dramatic reclamation of space. I don't want a man cave or a symbolic gesture. I'm too old for that kind of theater. That I just wanted to say this somewhere. To admit that you can lose your home without ever leaving it. The house is still here. The walls are solid. The mortgage is paid. That I just live in it like a guest who stayed too long to complain. And too quietly to be noticed. That if you made it this far, you're a legend. Leave a like and subscribe so I know you're one of the real ones. Thank you.